Today's lesson is getting a health check. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And today we're going to continue following Josh when he goes to the Health Management Center to get his employee medical check because he's going to start a new job, and they require this before he can actually check in and punch the clock and start working. Now, last time, of course, he made a phone call. He asked the receptionist for some information about making an appointment. He did not need to have an appointment. He could just go in there, take a number, wait for his number to be called. And then, of course, he could begin the examination. So on the next day or later on, he goes to the clinic and he's at the reception desk. He checks in and he fills out a questionnaire. And then the nurse is going to call his name eventually to start the examination.
And also the hospital receptionist also lets him know what he will be going through. So he will be taking his blood pressure, checking his vision, as well as giving blood and urine samples to test some general health parameters and to see that his liver and kidney function are working fine.
Indeed. Now, in today's lesson, of course, Josh is going to consult with the doctor about his examination. So let's find out what happens here. Let's listen to part 3, consulting with the doctor. We'll listen to the conversation first.
3. Consulting with the doctor. A physician talks to Josh about the latter's medical history.
I've reviewed the health history you provided, and it seems like you haven't had any major health problems thus far. Do you have any current health issues you'd like to discuss?
No, not that I can think of.
I see your family has a history of heart disease. Do you exercise regularly?
No, I haven't had time recently.
Well, I recommend doing a minimum of 30 minutes of aerobic exercise at least 3 to 5 times a week. And how about your diet?
I am cautious about my diet.
Good. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as we doctors like to say. Now, let's measure your blood pressure.
大家好，第一部分我们来介绍动词 consult， 它的意思是咨询、请教或是商议。例如 Pablo wanted to consult with his father before making a decision. Pablo 想跟他爸爸商量过后再做决定。另外，在这个字的字尾加上 ant， 就会变成名词 consultant， 它有顾问的意思。例如 After leaving the military, Ben found work as a security consultant. Ben 在退伍后找到一份安全顾问的工作。再举一个例子 The company hired a consultant to give advice about marketing. 该公司聘请了一名顾问来提供有关销售的建议。再来，我们看到名词 physician， 它有医生的意思，特别是指内科医生。例如 If you're feeling ill, consider making an appointment with your physician. 如果你感到不舒服，就考虑跟你的医生约个诊吧。又或者说 If you have a high fever, you should see a physician as soon as possible. 如果你发高烧，就应该尽快去看医生。下一个我们看到动词 recommend， 这个字的意思是推荐或是建议。例如 The doctor strongly recommended that Earl stop smoking. 医生强烈建议 Earl 戒烟。或是 Nathan recommended that her sister take her money out of the stock market. Nathan 建议他姐姐把资金从股市中抽回来。另外，在这个字的字尾加上 ation， 就会变成名词 recommendation。例如 Angela chose which computer to buy based on a recommendation from her uncle. Angela 根据她叔叔的推荐，选择购买哪台电脑。再举一个例子 On the recommendation of her doctor, Sienna began exercising daily. 在医生的建议下 Sienna 开始每天运动。接下来我们看到单字 cautious， 它是形容词，指的是谨慎的或是小心翼翼的。例如 The CEO took a cautious approach to running the company. 该执行长采取谨慎的做法来经营公司。或是 Amy always told her daughter to be cautious when walking home late at night. Amy 总是告诉她的女儿，深夜走路回家时要小心。
Okay, so here we're consulting with the doctor here, and to consult just means to have a meeting with somebody and they're going to give you some information because they're a specialist in this area. You might want to consult with an accountant, for example, if you're having trouble filing your taxes and you don't know how to report certain items on your tax form. Yes, you might consult an accountant for such information. In this particular case, he's consulting with the doctor. The doctor is looking over the results of his tests to find out if he's healthy or not.
And sometimes there are people that have consultant jobs. They might not work specifically in a certain industry, but they are consultants in that industry because they are specializing in helping people in that industry. So those are industry consultants. And here we see that the physician talks to Josh about the latter's medical history. So a physician is another way we can use to call a doctor. And usually a physician, because they do more physical stuff, they look at your physical body. So a physician is a doctor that really looks at what's going on outside your body as well.
Indeed. So he talks to the physician about his medical history. The physician says, well, I've reviewed the health history you provided on the questionnaire, and it seems like you haven't had any major health problems thus far. Thus far means up to now, up to the present time. You don't seem to have had any problems with your health. You've never had any broken bones. You've never had diabetes before, anything like that. According to the information you provided and according to the tests, we don't see anything really wrong with you. But still, sometimes people feel uncomfortable and want to talk to the doctor about something. So the physician here asks him, do you have any current health issues you'd like to discuss? Is there anything wrong with you?
Josh says, no, not that I can think of. I'm a young man. I don't really feel anything wrong with my body. So he says, I can't think of anything.
Okay, so the physician here reads his questionnaire and says, I see your family has a history of heart disease. Do you exercise regularly? So if you have a history of something, that means people in your family have had this problem before, and you might have that problem as well. Like for me, of course, my family has a history of diabetes. My mother had it. My grandmother had it. So, of course, that's going to be of concern to me. And indeed, his family has a history of heart disease. And of course, if you have a history of heart disease in your family, they need to know if you do a lot of exercise, because if you exercise, then your heart will be healthier.
Right. And my family, we have a history of hypertension or high blood pressure. So ever since I was young, I've been aware of this. And even though I don't show any signs of having high blood pressure, I've always been aware, so I always keep an eye on it. So it's really important for young people to also know your family's medical history so you can start to keep an eye and take care of your body at a younger age.
Right. So again, she sees, according to the questionnaire, that his family has a history of heart disease. Do you exercise regularly? Do you often exercise? And he says, no. I haven't had time recently. So yes, that's probably the case with a lot of people in modern society. We're just so busy with school and with work and with family and obligations that we don't really have time to head down to the gym or go for walks in the park. So indeed, he says he hasn't had time recently to work out, to exercise.
So the physician says, well, I recommend doing a minimum of 30 minutes of aerobic exercise at least 3 to 5 times a week. And how about your diet? So the physician knows Josh hasn't had time recently to exercise, so she recommends, so she's suggesting a type of schedule for Josh to do a minimum, do at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. So what's aerobic exercise?
Basically exercise for your circulatory system, your heart and your blood vessels and things like that. It would involve like jogging or swimming or things like that. It would not involve, say, weight training training. I believe that's referred to as anaerobic exercise, but aerobic is like working out on the treadmill or doing the exercise bicycle or something like that. Those are all forms of aerobic exercise. How about you? Do you get aerobic exercise regularly?
Yes, for my job, I do have to stay fit and do a lot of aerobic exercise. And there's a new trend called boxing aerobics.
Boxing aerobics.
Right. So it meshes this boxing with aerobics together. So you're doing boxing along with music and you have to follow the tempo and you throw your punches and you do the uppercut and it really gets your body going.
It's a good all-body workout, it sounds like. I just do the exercise bicycle, which exercises my legs mostly and maybe my abdomen a little bit, but not so much my arms. So maybe boxing aerobics would be something I should try. Or maybe, what's that, break dancing or something? That might help as well. So, yes, indeed, he says he hasn't had time recently to work out. And the physician says, well, again, I recommend, I think you should do this, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise at least 3 times a week. To recommend just means you give somebody some advice because you know about these things. And aerobic, again, has to do with burning oxygen by working out your heart and your circulatory system. And now she's asking him about his diet, about the food he eats. He says, I am cautious about my diet. Okay, that means he eats lots of whole grain food and fruits and vegetables, and he doesn't eat so many carbohydrates and sugary foods. He's very cautious or very careful about his diet.
The physician says, good. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as we doctors like to say. Now let's measure your blood pressure. So the physician thinks it's good that Josh is keeping a cautious diet. So Josh cares about the food that he's putting into his body, especially because he knows that his family has a history of heart disease. So when you have a history of heart disease, you have to stay away from certain types of food like fatty foods or even processed food. Like if you have bread or carbohydrate, it's best to stay with whole grain or maybe even brown rice, things like that. So he's cautious about what he eats. And the doctor says an ounce of prevention. So prevention is to stop something from happening. And in this case, if he is careful with his diet, he can keep himself healthy and prevent him or keep him from developing heart disease.
Yep, that's what prevention is. You stop something from happening in the first place. So yes, indeed, if you have a good diet, then you probably won't be sick later on. And that's something that doctors like to say. And then she says we're going to measure his blood pressure. And that's where conversation 3 ends. Now we're going to move on to conversation 4, where Josh receives the report, the result of his physical check. Let's listen.
4. Receiving the report. Josh returns to the reception desk.
Here's my exam form.
Thank you. That'll be $1,200 NT for the exam.
Here you are. And when will my health check report be ready?
In 7 business days. You can pick it up here or pay for postage and have it sent to you, which could take longer.
In that case, I'll come pick it up myself.
Understood. And here's your receipt. Please bring the receipt and your ID when you come to pick up the report.
Okay, thank you very much.
最后第2部分我们看到单字 postage， 它是名词，指的是邮资。例如 How much is the postage for this package？ 这个包裹的邮资是多少钱？又或者说 The postage required for large packages can be quite costly。 大包裹所需的邮资可能非常昂贵。
Okay, so in part 4, we are receiving the report. He's seen the doctor. He's had various examinations performed on him. And he now returns to the reception desk. He says, here's my exam form. So he gives the form to the receptionist. Here's my exam form. The receptionist says, thank you. That'll be $1,200 NT for the exam. That's how much the exam costs. He's got to pay that. He hands her the money. Here you are. And then he has a question, and when will my health check report be ready? So, of course, he's given a blood sample, and of course, they have to send the blood and the urine to the lab to test for various chemicals in those substances so they don't have the results right away. So he knows that it's going to take some time to get the results back, and he wants to know when his health check report will be ready so that he can start his job.
So the hospital receptionist tells Josh in 7 business days. So he's going to have to wait 7 business days or 7 work days until he gets his health report. And she tells him that you can pick it up here or pay for postage and have it sent to you, which could take longer. So he has to wait 7 days for the report to come back. So 7 business day means not including Saturday and Sunday. So that means he'll have to wait a week, Monday to Friday, and an additional, possibly another Monday to Tuesday. So that's 7 work days. And she gives him the option. You can either come back to the health management center to pick up your report in person or pay for postage. So postage is what we pay for stamps or registered mail when we want to send documents or when we want to send something. So here at the health management clinic, he can pay in advance for the postage. When the results come out, they will mail it to him automatically. So he can have the choice. But if they send it by post, it will take longer.
Right. Maybe he could arrange to have the results sent electronically via email or something like that, but evidently this is their policy here. He could come back and pick it up or have it sent to him, but he's got to pay for postage first. And Josh says, well, in that case, if that's the case, I'll come pick it up myself. So I guess he's unwilling to pay for postage, even though that might be more convenient. He'd rather come pick it up himself. Maybe he lives nearby. It's convenient for him to drop by and pick it up. Are my results ready? Can I see what you found out? Am I healthy or am I going to die or anything like that? Do I need to start some medication or something like that? So indeed, he's going to come back and pick it up himself.
And it's also possible that he's worried about his medical report getting lost in the mail. So maybe that's why he wants to take extra precaution to come and pick it up by himself. So the hospital receptionist says, understood. And here's your receipt. Please bring the receipt and your ID when you come to pick up the report. So he has chosen that he's going to come back to the health management center to pick up his report. But in order to do that, he needs to show proof that he has already paid for the report and he is who he says he is, because we know that medical reports and medical records are very personal things. So you don't want it to get it into the wrong hands, right?
Exactly, right. So, of course, different places have different policies on what you need to present. Again, he's going to get a receipt and then he's going to go back and pick up the results. He needs to show his receipt and he also needs to show his ID. Remember, at the beginning of our lesson, he presented a passport as his ID, but there are other forms of ID that you can present, your driver's license. And in Taiwan, of course, here, when you go to a clinic or when you go to the hospital, they pretty much always ask you for your jianbao ka, or your health insurance card, your national health insurance card, and that is a picture ID. At least mine is. I think I've heard of the form where you don't have to have a picture if you don't want to, but most people have pictures on their national health insurance cards.
And what's interesting in Taiwan, it's a little different from, let's say, the States. Sometimes in the States, the doctors, they'll mail or email you your results first so that you can see it before you go back in for a consultation with a doctor. But in Taiwan, maybe because they don't want people to see their results and, start thinking too much, they actually don't do that. They don't mail it out to you. If you want to see your result, you have to go back physically to see the doctor in order to know what's going on with your body.
That's true, but I think when I mentioned before that my wife and I sometimes go to have a health checkup because of our health insurance policy, they do actually mail you the results from that. And it's a private clinic, so I don't remember if we had to present our health insurance cards or not. I think we probably did have to, but again, it's private, and so therefore they might have different policies regarding that. And if you do travel overseas, of course, you're going to have to deal with different policies in different countries. So figure out exactly what you have to present when you go see a doctor, say in Canada or the United States. You did live in Canada for a while, so did you have some sort of national health insurance card there?
Yeah, I think they are similar to what we have here with the 健保卡 as well. And I think also it's really important that when you do a health check that you keep these printed health reports with you. Usually my parents and I, we have a habit of keeping all our records, and that way we always have it on hand and you can keep track of what's going on with your body throughout all these years. And, when you start to feel something's off or if you're worried or concerned, you can always bring these health records back to a doctor and, you can discuss with them what's going on with your body.
Indeed. And back to the conversation here. I think Josh has nothing to worry about, but as Kiki said, it's a good idea to keep track of your health over the years as you get older and older. Believe me, you will start to have problems eventually. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第一部分的对话里，医生有说一句 An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as we doctors like to say. 正如我们医生喜欢说的，预防胜于治疗。那么 ounce 就是盎司， pound 是磅，两者都是重量单位，一磅就等于16盎司。那当我们说 an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure， 字面意思是1盎司的预防价值1磅的治疗，那它其实就相当于中文说的预防胜于治疗，防范于未然。好，那我们也可以直接用 prevention is better than cure 去表达预防胜于治疗的意思。好，那这边也顺便学几个意思相近的惯用语。第一个是 a stitch in time， 或者是 A stitch in time saves 9。 那么 stitch 当动词有缝或是缝补的意思，那么在这边当名词，它可以指缝线或是一针。而这句话字面意思是及时缝一针能够省9针，也就是当你及时行事及时处理就会事半功倍的意思咯。趁问题还小的时候及时解决，才不会让问题恶化。好，那第二个补充的用法是 It's better to be safe than sorry，或者是 better safe than sorry， 字面意思是安全总比后悔好，那也就是中文说的有备无患，常常用来劝人做事要小心谨慎，尽管做某事很麻烦很困难，但最好还是不要冒险的好。好，那么第三个呢是 err on the side of caution。Err 是拼作 E-R-R， 那这个动词就表示 make a mistake， 就有犯错啊、做错事的意思。那这个用语就是用来表达宁愿过于谨慎，也不要冒险犯错的意思。那假设我们在跟朋友讨论要不要投资的这种事情啊，也许就可以说 Let's err on the side of caution。我们还是谨慎一点，不要冒险的好。其实这时候你也可以说 Let's play it safe， 我们还是谨慎起见吧。那么 play it safe 就像我们中文说的打安全牌，用来表达谨慎行事，不要冒险。那最后补充一下，如果是要劝对方赶快行动，那就可以说 Don't let the grass grow under your feet。 好， let the grass grow under one's feet， 这是比较夸张的描述，就是当一个人一直站在某地不动，时间已经久到让地上的草都长出来了。所以当我们说 Don't let the grass grow under your feet， 就是劝人做事不要拖拖拉拉，不要浪费时间，要对方马上行动，不要再耽搁了，不要再等到草都长出来这样子。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Consult. Stanley decided to consult a lawyer before signing the contract. Physician. Mrs. Peters wasn't feeling well, so she scheduled an exam with her physician. Recommend. I wouldn't recommend trying to fix the leak yourself. Cautious. Mark is known to be very cautious with his money. Prevention. The dam was built to ensure the prevention of flooding. Postage. The total cost of the product included an additional charge for postage.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Kiki.
See you next time.